여러분 안녕하세요. 대한민국 영어 감잡기 프로젝트 데미안과 함께하는 너쉬영북 시간입니다. 이번 시간은 24강 리딩입니다. 72쪽 마지막 문단부터 76쪽 챕터가 끝나는 곳까지입니다. 연관문은 블루로 표시되어 있어요. 자, 읽어볼까요? Confirmation day was approaching and our lesson said the Last Supper for their topic. This was a matter of importance to the pastor, and he took great pains explaining it to us. One could almost taste the solemn mood during those last hours of instruction. And of all times, it had to be now that my thoughts were farthest from class, for they were fixed on my friend. While I looked ahead to being confirmed, it was explained to us as a solemn acceptance into the community of the church. I could not help thinking that the value of this religious instruction consisted for me not in what I had learned, but in the proximity and influence of Max Demian. It was not into the church that I was ready to be received, but into something entirely different, into an order of thought and personality that must exist somewhere on earth, and whose representative or messenger I took to be my friend. I tried to suppress this idea. I was anxious to involve myself in the confirmation ceremony with a certain dignity, and this dignity seemed not to agree very well with my new idea. Yet, no matter what I did, the thought was present, and gradually it became firmly linked with the approaching ceremony. I was ready to enact it differently from the others, for it was to signify my acceptance into a world of thought as I had come to know it through Demian. On one of those days, it happened that we were having an argument just before class. My friend was tight-lipped and seemed to take no pleasure in my talk, which probably was self-important as well as precautious. We talk too much, he said with unwanted seriousness. Clever talk is absolutely worthless. All you do in the process is lose yourself, and to lose yourself is a sin. One has to be able to crawl completely inside oneself, like a tortoise. Then we entered the classroom. The lesson began, and I made an effort to pay attention. Demian did not distract me. After a while, I began to sense something odd from the side where he sat, an emptiness or coolness or something similar, as though the seat next to me had suddenly become vacant. And the feeling became oppressive. I turned to look. There I saw my friend sitting upright, his shoulders braced back as usual. Nonetheless, he looked completely different, and something emanated from him. Something surrounded him that was unknown to me. I first thought he had his eyes closed, but then saw they were open. Yet they were not focused on anything. It was an unseeing gaze. They seemed transfixed with looking inward or into a great distance. He sat there completely motionless, not even seeming to breathe. His mouth might have been carved from wood or stone. His face was pale, uniformly pale like a stone, and his brown hair was the part of him that seemed closest to being alive. His hands lay before him on the bench, lifeless and still as objects, like stones or fruit, pale, motionless, yet not limp, but like good, strong pods, shedding a hidden, vigorous life. I trembled at the sight. Dead, I thought, almost saying it aloud. My spellbound eyes were fixed on his face, on this pale stone mask, and I felt, this is the real Demian. When he walked beside me or talked to me, that was only half of him. Someone who periodically plays a role, adapts himself, who out of sheer complacence does as the others do. The real Demian, however, looked like this, as primeval, animal, marble, beautiful and cold, dead, yet secretly filled with a fabulous life. And around him, this quiet emptiness, this ether, interstellar space, this lonely death. Now he had gone completely into himself, I felt, and I trembled. Never had I been so alone. I had no part in him. He was inaccessible. He was more remote from me than if he had been on the most distant island in the world. I could hardly grasp it that no one besides me noticed him. Everyone should have looked at him. Everyone should have trembled, but no one heeded him. He sat there like a statue, and, I thought, proud as an idol. A fly alighted on his forehead and scurried across his nose and lips. Not a muscle twitched. Where was he now? What was he thinking? What did he feel? Was he in heaven or was he in hell? I was unable to put a question to him. At the end of the period, when I saw him alive and breathing again, as his glance met mine, he was the same as he had been before. Where did he come from? Where had he been? He seemed tired. His face was no longer pale. His hands moved again, but now the brown hair was without luster, as though lifeless. During the next few days, I began a new exercise in my bedroom. I would sit rigid in a chair, make my eyes rigid too, and stay completely motionless and see how long I could keep it up and what I would feel. I only felt very tired and my eyelids itched. Shortly afterwards, we were confirmed, an event that calls forth no important memories whatever. Now everything changed. My childhood world was breaking apart around me. My parents eyed me with a certain embarrassment. My sisters had become strangers to me. A disenchantment falsified and blunted my usual feelings and joys. The garden lacked fragrance. The woods held no attraction for me. The world stood around me like a clearance sale of last year's second-hand goods. Insipid, all its charm gone. Books were so much paper, music a grating noise. That is the way leaves fall around a tree in autumn. A tree unaware of the rain running down its sides, of the sun or the frost, and of life gradually retreating inward. The tree does not die, it waits. It had been decided that I would be sent away to a boarding school at the end of the vacation. For the first time, I would be away from home. Sometimes my mother approached me with a particular tenderness, as if already taking leave of me ahead of time, intent on inspiring love, homesickness, the unforgettable in my heart. Demian was away on a trip. I was alone. 자, 오늘은 여기까지입니다. 오늘은 조금 길었죠? 한 페이지 정도 평소보다 많았어요. 오늘 영상이 여러분이 영어의 감을 잡는 데 도움이 된다면 구독, 좋아요로 꼭 알려주세요. 더 좋은 영상을 만드는 데 큰 힘이 될 것입니다. 여러분 감사합니다.